When you drive into the valley that we live in, there is this wide open canyon that you can see into, and at the back of it there is what looks like a winding snowfield. But if you look closer, you realize it's moving. It's not a snowfield at all. In fact, it's a waterfall. And so we've been staring at that for months and knew that we had to get up there and see that for ourselves. So the other day, Robbie and Owen and Lyra, the dog, and myself, we headed up there to check it out. The hike begins with a magical green forest that reminded us of the forest that we've seen in Oregon, in the Scottish Highlands, and in northern Spain. We were in the shade at first. The sun was creeping over the cliffs above us. But pretty soon we were out of that green forest and a little bit more into the sun, a little more to the heat, because it was a hot day that day, around 90 degrees or maybe even a little bit higher. Soon we started to get glimpses of waterfalls. Not that main one that we'd seen up the canyon, but on the sides of the canyons. Eventually we could hear one getting nearer. It was getting really loud, and we rounded the corner and there it was, kind of the bottom of this course of waterfalls that we would be climbing up to see. On the trail reports, a lot of people were saying, make sure your dog is on leash, because a lot of people let their dog off leash, and right here they go up for a drink and get swept over these falls. And sure enough, when we got to the trailhead, there was a paper plate there saying lost dog. It was describing the dog, said it had gone over the falls. The trail had been okay to this point. There were some parts that kind of went straight up, but for the most part the trail was pretty well defined. But from here, the trail literally just went straight up the mountain and right into the sun, into the heat. And from that point on, the trail was not very easy. We've been warned about that. These mountains we live by have a number of treasures, but they don't come easy. And I suppose that's better in the long run. At this point, Owen, who's only in third grade, was really complaining. He was saying, "Dad, this is too hard. I don't think I can make it." I think there were a couple of tears at one point. Owen's got a little bit tough because he has a big space between him and his older brothers. And so either we could just leave him home and he never gets to do this stuff, or he's just got to come along and face the fact that these things that might be a little bit easier for his brothers are going to be tough for him. But the nice thing is, if he can get through those tough moments, then he has proved to himself that he can hang with two very active, athletic teenage brothers. Finally, as we got higher, the trail really started paying off at this point. This is where we got our first glimpse of this gigantic waterfall. And I'm going to back this up and give you a little sense of the scale on this. This little tree right here is probably about the size of a person. So that gives you a sense of just how immense this thing is. It turns out the trail didn't actually take us by the waterfall. This is about the closest we could get, so we're gonna have to come back and do a little bushwhacking and figure out how to get to the base of this. A little bit higher than this waterfall, we finally came to a nice plateau, and this is where maybe even the biggest payoff came. There's a lake up there, and it pretty much speaks for itself. It was incredible. Crystal clear water, surrounded by gorgeous mountains, peaceful, fish just popping up to the surface, you know, every few seconds, and it was awesome. I think my favorite part about being up there was that literally 30 seconds after arriving, the boys, who both had been complaining at this point, were like, "Dad, forget what I said. This was totally worth it."
Oh, it feels so weird. Yes.
I'll get him. Lyra, go get him.
Oh.
Man, that wasn't worth it. Oh, cool.
Lyra was probably the biggest trooper of the day. I think if we would have done it again, we would have left her home, because there was so many times we had to lift her over big obstacles and up cliffs that she couldn't be expected to climb. And so usually she gets a number of naps every day, but she hadn't had a single one. So as we were coming down and the heat was on, she was just lapping up that water, and then she just crashed there. We had to let her have a good rest for at least 10-15 minutes to just get back some energy. But in the end, as these things go, it was tough, but we all made it, and we were all glad that we did it. To top it off, later that evening, I was starving, and Sarah and I went out for a date. And one of the best parts of being out here is that pretty much everywhere, tots are offered standard, you know, along with fries or mashed potatoes or whatever. So I don't know what it is, lunchroom nostalgia or something, but I have been getting tots and they have been hitting the spot. I hope you enjoyed this little glimpse of my most recent adventure. I think I'm going to be able to put out a few more videos here a little bit quicker than I have been, and I look forward to seeing you back next time.